Florida sells itself on sunshine. Beaches from Pensacola to Key West, theme parks that draw millions, retirement communities with their own zip codes. But some of the most consequential ground in this state is ground you will never be allowed to stand on. A 900-ton rocket motor sealed in an Everglades silo since the 1960s. Radioactive waste stacked 200 feet high next to schools, leaking into the drinking water. A reform school where forensic teams dug up 55 unmarked graves, some with gunshot wounds. These are 10 forbidden places in Florida you're not allowed to visit, no matter who you are, and no matter how close to them you already live. Number 1, the Aerojet Dade rocket facility. There is a silo in the Everglades about 30 miles south of Miami with a rocket motor inside it that weighs more than 900 tons. The motor is 260 inches in diameter and nearly 81 feet long. The nozzle throat is wide enough to walk through standing upright. It has been sitting in that silo for nearly 60 years. Aerojet General built the facility in 1963 under a $3 million Air Force contract. The plan was to replace the entire 8-engine first stage of the Saturn I rocket with a single solid fuel motor. The chambers were too large for rail, so Aerojet cut its own canal through the Everglades to barge them in from the Atlantic coast. It remains the longest privately constructed canal in the Everglades. NASA chose liquid fuel instead. By the end of the 1960s, the facility was abandoned. The rocket motor was left in place. Today, the silo is covered with steel plates weighted by concrete beams, and the surrounding structures have been dismantled to deter trespassing. In September 2013, 18-year-old Jesus Trejo left his home to meet someone near the facility. His body was found 2 days later in a nearby canal. Police ruled it a homicide. No one has ever been charged. Number 2, Florida's phosphogypsum stacks. Scattered across Florida, there are 25 mountains of radioactive fertilizer waste, some reaching 200 feet tall. Combined, they hold more than 1 billion tons of phosphogypsum, the byproduct of turning phosphate rock into fertilizer. The waste contains uranium and radium-226. It emits radon gas, and the ratio is brutal. For every ton of phosphoric acid produced, 5 tons of radioactive waste are created and stacked. In March 2021, a liner tore at the Piney Point Stack in Manatee County. The site held nearly 800 million gallons of contaminated water across its ponds. Officials feared a full collapse could send a 20-foot wall of water flooding outward. More than 300 homes were evacuated. Engineers pumped roughly 35 million gallons per day directly into Tampa Bay, untreated. Most people never heard about this part. In 2016, a sinkhole opened beneath a Mosaic Company stack in Polk County and swallowed 215 million gallons of radioactive water straight into the Floridan aquifer, the drinking water source for millions of Floridians. Mosaic did not tell the public for 3 weeks. There are 25 of these stacks. They're all still there. Number 3, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Most people know Kennedy Space Center, the visitor complex with the gift shop and the bus tours. Cape Canaveral Space Force Station is the military installation next door that you can't visit. This is where America actually went to space. The first American in orbit, John Glenn, launched from here in 1962. The base is still active. SpaceX launches from one pad. ULA launches from another. Armed security patrols the perimeter. But the most restricted site on the station is Launch Complex 34. On January 27, 1967, during a routine test for the Apollo 1 mission, a fire erupted inside the command module. The pure oxygen atmosphere turned the cabin into an inferno. Astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee could not open the inward opening hatch. All 3 died. The pad structure remains as it was. A plaque reads, "Remember them not for how they died, but for those ideals for which they lived." You need a military escort and special permission to stand where it happened. Number 4. The Dozier School for Boys. For 111 years, from 1900 to 2011, the state of Florida ran a reform school in Marianna called Dozier. Boys as young as 8 were committed for truancy and petty theft. Inside a concrete block building the boys called the White House, staff beat children with leather straps reinforced with sheet metal. Survivors described being held face down on a blood-stained bed and beaten until they lost consciousness. Starting in 2012, forensic anthropologist Erin Kimmerly and her University of South Florida team began surveying and excavating the campus burial ground. They found 55 unmarked graves, 24 more than officially documented. Some remains showed gunshot wounds, some showed blunt force trauma. The school was racially segregated. Black boys were housed on the North Campus where conditions were significantly worse. The White House was sealed in a public ceremony in 2008. Survivors have returned and asked to enter the building where they were beaten as children. They've been denied. In 2024, more than 800 survivors applied for restitution from a $20 million state compensation fund. Number 5. Eagle's Nest Sink. From the surface, it looks like a pond, about 200 feet across, surrounded by palmettos in Hernando County. Step below the waterline and it drops 300 feet into a mile of underwater cave passages with chambers as large as gymnasiums. Cave divers call it the Mount Everest of cave diving. Others call it the Venus flytrap. On Christmas Day, 2013, a father and son entered Eagle's Nest to test new diving equipment. Neither came back up. They were not certified cave divers. In 2016, Patrick Peacock and Chris Rittenmeyer, both experienced cave divers who had been inside Eagle's Nest multiple times, went in with a friend who stayed near the surface. When they failed to check in, rescue divers were called. They couldn't locate the pair that night. The next morning, a fresh crew found both bodies at 260 feet in what the Hernando County Sheriff's Office described as a very dangerous and complex area of the cave system. The site was banned entirely from 1999 to 2003. Divers lobbied to reopen it. It reopened. The deaths continued. In 2018, 53-year-old Davin Brannon died barely inside the first room during what was supposed to be a shallow dive. At least 12 people have died inside Eagle's Nest since 1981. If you're learning something new about Florida, hit subscribe. We cover places like this every week. Number 6. MacDill Air Force Base. On a peninsula in Tampa Bay, inside a single military installation, sit the headquarters of United States Central Command and United States Special Operations Command. CENTCOM directs all U.S. military operations across 21 countries in the Middle East, Central Asia, and East Africa. SOCOM coordinates every special operations unit in the country. Every major U.S. military operation since 1983, from Desert Storm to the Bin Laden raid, has been coordinated from this base. In 2006, 2 teenagers in a stolen Chrysler drove straight through the security gate at 2:30 in the morning. Armed guards had authority to use lethal force but made a judgment call not to shoot. The car crashed near sensitive command centers. And somehow, it gets worse. In March 2026, a suspicious package containing possible energetic materials was found at the visitor center gate. 2 days later, a separate threat triggered a shelter in place. The base moved to the second highest military threat level. Number 7. Eglin Air Force Base. The largest Air Force installation in America, covers 463,000 acres of the Florida Panhandle, plus 86,500 square miles of Gulf of Mexico water range. The 96th Test Wing tests every non-nuclear air-delivered weapon in the American arsenal here. But the facility that earns the strangest double take is the McKinley Climatic Laboratory. Built in 1947, it's the world's largest climatic testing chamber. It can freeze a full-size C-130 Hercules to minus 65 degrees Fahrenheit, blast it with tropical rain, bury it in sand, and bake it at 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Every aircraft in the U.S. military inventory has been tested inside this building. And no, I'm not making this up. Before the testing ranges and the climatic lab, this base was where Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle secretly trained 24 B-25 bomber crews for the first American air raid on Tokyo. 16 of those crews flew the actual mission in April 1942. They practiced short takeoff runs simulating an aircraft carrier deck on remote Florida panhandle airfields. Most Americans don't know the Tokyo raid started here. Number 8. Turkey Point Nuclear Power Plant. 25 miles south of downtown Miami, 2 nuclear reactors sit on the shore of Biscayne Bay. The plant's cooling system is 168 miles of canals carved into Florida limestone, covering roughly 5,900 acres. The grid is visible from space. No one outside Florida power and light operations staff is allowed inside. The warm water in those canals created ideal nesting conditions for the American crocodile, a federally listed threatened species. FPL employs a wildlife biologist specifically to monitor the nests. A nuclear power plant became one of Florida's most important crocodile conservation sites, specifically because humans are forbidden from entering. But the plant sits at roughly 5 feet above sea level in a hurricane zone. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew destroyed the plant's smokestack and all 5 cooling towers. The nuclear units survived. The community around them did not. Studies have found hypersaline water from the canals migrating into the Biscayne Aquifer, the drinking water source for Miami-Dade County. The plant's license runs until 2053. The sea keeps rising. Number 9. The Disney Utilidors. Beneath the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, there's a 392,000 square foot network of utility corridors that most visitors never learn exists. Cast members, deliveries, trash removal, and park operations all move through these tunnels completely out of sight. The tunnels aren't actually underground. Florida's water table was too high to dig. Retired Army Major General William Potter, a Panama Canal veteran, solved the problem. Build the corridors at ground level, then raise the entire park above them using 8 million tons of fill dirt. By the time you reach Cinderella Castle, you're at 3rd floor level without knowing it. Inside, battery-powered golf carts carry staff through color-coded routes. A cafeteria called the Mouse-Cateria sits beneath the castle where Snow White eats pizza next to Gaston in full costume. The park's trash disappears through a pneumatic vacuum system sucked through tubes at 60 miles per hour to a central collection point below. Visitors never even see a dumpster. Number 10. Fisher Island. 3 miles off the southern tip of Miami Beach, there's a 216-acre private barrier island that most Miamians don't know exists. Fisher Island is the most expensive zip code in America with a median home sale price of $9.5 million. No bridge, no road. The only way in is a private ferry, a yacht, or a helicopter. The ferry runs 24 hours from a terminal near the MacArthur Causeway. A uniformed attendant walks the queue checking identification. You cannot board unless you're a resident, a registered guest, or you have a confirmed club invitation. Even real estate agents need proof of funds before they're allowed to show a property. The island has its own police force, fire department, school, post office, grocery store, and 9 restaurants. The Fisher Island Club charges a $250,000 initiation fee. There is 0 remaining developable land. The real question isn't why Fisher Island exists. It's how a private island with its own police force, 3 miles off the coast of Miami, stays invisible to the city it faces. If Florida has places like these hiding in plain sight, you know just about every state does. Next time, we're heading somewhere that makes Florida's secrets look tame by comparison.